Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 11 of For Those About to Pod, We Salute You, the classic rock podcast. In this episode, we look back at the year 2010 in My Year in Rock. We look at the latest rock news. We talk about bands that are not from the USA or Britain. We also have a little look for our hidden gems. If you like what you hear, check us out on Facebook or on Twitter at FTATPod. But without further ado, here's my podcast partner, Mr. Brian Amaili. Brian, how are you?
Hey, Matt. How are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, good. Happy birthday. It's your birthday today.
It is indeed, yes.
We're recording this on the 29th of March.
We are indeed.
Which is Brian's birthday. Congratulations. Happy birthday, my friend.
Yes, 1 year older, 1 year wiser. And hopefully, it's my second and last lockdown birthday, Matt.
Oh, absolutely.
That would be nice,
Yes.
wouldn't it? The last lockdown birthday that I have. And hopefully, for
Yes.
you, when it's your birthday, not that you've told us that your birthday is, in April on St. George's Day, but
It is.
by then, you guys might be out to play.
Maybe. Well, fingers crossed. Let's not tempt fate. However, I've been doing some research as to who you share your birthday with.
Ah,
Now, you may know some of these already because I know one or two people who I share my birthday with because I'm a bit of a, I like to know for some odd reason. But you share your birthday with a variety of people.
okay.
And would you like me to tell you who they are?
Am I going to be cool in the process of you telling me this?
Well, I think so.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So firstly, John Popper. Does that name ring any bells with you?
Who?
John Popper. Now, he is the singer of who? John Popper. There are Blues Traveler fans all around the world thinking, of course you know who John Popper is. John Popper's a singer of Blues Traveler.
I didn't know that. Didn't know that.
Well, there you go. You do now.
I do.
You share your birthday with him.
Happy birthday, John.
Well, hopefully he's listening. You never know. And they, of course, had a huge album with their fourth album, and a mega hit with the song Runaround. Now, I've just kind of contrived that because I think it's a really good song. So there you go. Podcast. Playlist, please. Secondly, Dave Greenfield, the late Dave Greenfield from the Stranglers,
Ooh.
keyboard player. It would have been his birthday today. So, sadly, he passed away last year.
He did. Yeah.
Perry Farrell. From
You kidding?
Jane's Addiction. Yeah, Perry Farrell is he's a little bit older than you, Brian, to be fair. But it is his birthday today. Happy birthday, Perry.
Yeah.
So we'll have should we have Mountain Song, maybe? I think it's called Mountain Song.
They were. I remember when the only time that I've been at Download or Drownload when we got absolutely soaked in 2016, I went to see Jane's Addiction, and they were absolutely off the scale. They were headlining one of the I think there was a second stage at Download, and they were just they were awesome. Dave Navarro and Jane. I don't know. I know that they is it being caught stealing and stuff like that.
I got one more.
Okay.
And you would like this one because I know you're a big fan of this guy and his band. You share. This is pretty cool. When I looked this up, and I did do a little bit of preparation for a change. When I looked this up, I thought you're going to love this. Bobby Kimball.
You're kidding me.
Bobby Kimball's birthday is today. Now, for those who don't know who Bobby Kimball is, would you like to tell our 10 listeners, Brian, who Bobby Kimball
You just
is?
want me to hear. You just want me to say the word Toto. Bobby Kimball.
All right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. Bobby Kimball was the original lead singer in Toto.
In total.
And Toto. Bobby Kimball, me are the same. So it's destiny. At some point, I will be the lead singer in Toto.
Well, you never know. I mean, I've heard you sing, and you can hold a tune.
But you know whose birthday it is tomorrow?
Well, no, we haven't finished on Toto yet.
Oh, have we not finished it?
I want to squeeze in my favourite song.
All right, yeah. Let's see how we can get your favourite song into the playlist.
So we mentioned Rosanna, which I love.
Yes.
It's got that legendary Jeff Porcaro, the Porcaro Shuffle, I think it's called, isn't it?
It is, yes.
But my favourite song by them is called Girl Goodbye.
Oh, it's an awesome song on the first album.
Indeed.
I think it's even track 8.
Not that you're a fan or anything,
No.
you know, even where they sit.
Yeah, that's a guess. That's a complete
It's,
guess.
it's track 1, side 2 in old memory. But anyway, you know, it's on there with Hold the Line as well. We're dropping these Toto bombs like they're going out of fashion, aren't we?
Exactly.
Anyway, I will have Girl Goodbye, please. So that's who you share your birthday with. I think that's pretty cool. All of those guys are great. I mean, they've got a fantastic track record and some great, you know, works they've done over the years. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
So happy birthday. Happy birthday from me and all our 10 listeners.
Well, I'll have to do the same for your birthday then. I remember a friend.
Which is when? No, I don't want to steal your thunder. This is your day, Brian.
Okay, that's my day. The reason why I was going to mention that I have a good friend of mine whose birthday is the same birthday as Phil Lynnett's, which I think's the 18th of August. So obviously, when Phil Lynnett's remembered on his birthday, my mate has a birthday the same day, and there's a little bit of me going, God, if I could have a birthday, it would be on the same day as Phil Lynnett's. And for years, well, always every year, Eric Clapton's birthday is the 30th of March.
Okay.
And I always wondered, I always thought, God, wouldn't it have been cool to have Eric Clapton the same birthday as Eric Clapton? But I'll take Bobby Kimball, Perry Farrell, and my new favourite band, Blues Traveller.
Blues Traveller.
Yes, exactly. John Popper.
John Popper, indeed.
There you go.
Yeah. So
see, I listen. When you speak, I listen.
Well, yeah, that's good. Good to know. Good to know. Right. So anyway, festivities over, Brian.
Thank you.
We're going to have a different spin on what's in the news this time. But before we come to that, because I'm going to ask you what you've been listening to lately, and you're going to ask me the same, and it's going to work like that. However, in the meantime, see, I like to orchestrate these things, as you can tell. In the meantime, I've got one very interesting item of news, and I wish I'd known about this before, in time for your birthday, because this is hilarious. You can now buy, believe it or not, a Thin Lizzy colouring book. Did you know that?
No.
So there is a company called Rock and Roll Colouring, I think, something like that. Yes, Rock and Roll Colouring. And they have a range of rock-related colouring books. And they've done Motorhead and Priest, and they've just released a Thin Lizzy. It's true. It's not April Fool's yet. They have released a Thin Lizzy and Megadeth, not together, obviously separate books. Thin Lizzy and Megadeth colouring books, which I thought was great.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of artwork involved in rock bands and rock album covers and singles and so on. So this obviously lends itself perfectly to colouring books, which I was thinking about this actually, because it does. I mean, in the lockdown, the global lockdown we've been in, and people being, having more time on their hands, possibly. I guess this is one of the things that's kind of been spawned from that.
Yeah,
colouring books. It's quite a therapeutic thing to do, I'm told. So anyway, there you go. Just a little oddity that I spotted on my travels.
You can think of two extremes here, so you can go.
They haven't got extreme yet.
No. But I'm thinking about two extremes. You could turn around and go. There you go, son. Here's a colouring in page for the Black Album by Metallica.
That would be good.
That would be good. And then on the flip side of that, if your dad or your parents are massive progressive rock fans, and you go, here you go, son. Here's the cover of Yes's Tales from Topographic Oceans. And it's like, see you in 3 weeks.
That's right. I would much prefer, page one, here's the Back in Black album cover. Page two, here's the Beatles' White album cover. Because I'm not a great colourer inner.
Yes.
Anyway, so I thought that would tickle you, being a Thin Lizzy fan, which of course you can talk about now. Do you know?
The lawyers are lied.
They do indeed. I heard from them last time. So anything caught your eye in the news lately, Brian?
Absolutely, Matt. Obviously.
Oh, good.
Absolutely. And as you're the only one that can see me on the podcast, you can see what t-shirt I'm wearing.
I can.
I'm wearing an S and K, which you said earlier was Simon Kirke from Bad Company. It's not.
Is it not?
It's not.
Okay.
It's Smith Kotzen, and we don't have to go on talk about it too much because we've featured Adrian and Richie on the show. But the album was released last Friday. I got it. I got the T-shirt. Not literally, actually. Got the T-shirt, got the CD, got a little signed thing. I have been listening to the album, and obviously the teaser tracks, Scars, Taking My Chances. Listening to it, Matt, it's a brilliant album, and I can only back you up with what you said on the last show. Where has Adrian Smith been as a singer?
I know. He's great, isn't he?
And I've been listening to the album all weekend, and I'm gonna. To me, the biggest compliment that I can give Adrian and Richie is that if you listen to the album, and I recommend it, people, however you listen to your music, it reminds me of Stormbringer by Deep Purple. There's elements of it where Richie has a Glenn Hughes funkiness to his delivery, and Adrian Smith's got that kind of classic Paul Rodgers free type vocal. And I was listening to the album today before the show, and there's just elements of the Hughes Coverdale playoff, which was in Stormbringer and Burn, and it's the best compliment I can give it. It's the best 2-vocal album that I've heard since Glenn and David Coverdale, which is the best praise I can give it. So, people, the tracks that we heard on Spotify and the guys, Richie and Adrian Smith, have delivered on a great album. That's all my news for this week. Really, really good, really good album, mate.
No, it's good. Brilliant. Well, that's sort of our new feature then. Yeah. What have I been listening to lately? It's got quite a long name. We'll have to work on that. But someone please come up with a better name than what have I been listening to lately. There's no prize, of course, as we know.
Yes.
Never a prize because we haven't got a budget for a prize. But if anyone's got any ideas about this, what we call this new section, which basically is, the premise is Brian listens to an album, I listen to an album, and we talk about it for like 2 minutes.
Okay. So please, whatever name you can come up with, please let us know, boys and girls. So you're going to ask me the same, aren't you? I am indeed. Yeah. What have you been listening to?
Well, I listened to, we mentioned this as well. Actually, we mentioned this quite a while ago when it was announced it was going to be released. And I have been listening to the new Thunder album, which is called All the Right Noises. And I think it's great. I really do. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Thunder fan, but sometimes, albums don't stick first time. But this one does, and it's amazing. I mean, it's topical in a sense. There's a couple of songs about America. There's a couple of songs about Brexit. There's a song called St. George's Day, strangely enough. It's an interesting one. It's got semi-political undertones, but it's done in a really subtle way. There's a song called Smoking Gun on here, which is quite a lot about the recent presidential administration, Trump's administration in the US. At least that's the way I read it. Last one out, Turn Off the Lights, is all about Brexit and a very interesting kind of angle on that. So yeah, I recommend it. All the Right Noises by Thunder, and Luke Morley, who has written, I think, all of these songs, as he quite often does on the Thunder albums. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, what a songwriter. I mean, he's been doing this with, well, pre-Thunder with Terraplane, but essentially with Thunder for the last 30 plus years.
Yeah.
They've had obviously a little hiatus in the middle there, but the quality of songwriting is just fantastic. And I loved Wonder Years, which came out about 10 years ago.
I was going to say 2009.
And I would say this is on a par with that. So yeah, check it out, everyone. Great album. All the Right Noises by Thunder.
It's fabulous. Fabulous. The opening track, last one out, Turn Off the Lights. It reminds me, there's a real Led Zeppelin riff.
Yeah.
There's a real feel to it. And my favourite track on the album, even though I listened to the album the whole way through, Going to Sin City is just downright dirty AC/DC. It's just, but it's so produced well, as you say. And Luke Morley produces a lot of the material now, but it's nearly 50 minutes of material.
I know,
and there's no
great
filler on it. It's just a great album. No, good shout, mate. Good shout.
I may have referred to the previous album as Wonder Years, but it was actually called Wonder Days.
Okay.
Right. Anyway, enough about the news.
Uh-huh.
So last time we spoke, I set you the challenge of talking us through your memories of the year 2010, which is only 11 years ago, of course, so relatively recently.
Uh-huh.
And normally I'd ask you how old you were then.
And
so I'm still going to, even though it's only 10 years ago. So how old were you in 2010, Brian?
2010, I was 41. Is that correct, Matthew?
I'm not sure.
Is that right? Yeah, I'm 41. I was 41 in 2010.
Yeah, you're not 41 now, though.
I'm not 41 now. No. What a great year 2010 was. 2010, we will get into the albums. 2010, brilliant year for gigs for me. Everybody was out touring in 2010. I got to see the reformed Asia, the original Asia, with they released an album worth a mention, Omega or Amiga.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those tomato. Alter Bridge toured. I saw the Manic Street Preachers. Glenn Hughes was touring. Alice in Chains. I got to see them for the first time. Bad Company toured the UK. I will always remember that tour because Paul Rodgers sounded like he was singing the Telephone Book, and it was just amazing. Joe Perry was a support act.
That's right.
Oh,
Joe Perry Project, wasn't it? I saw that tour at Brighton.
Yeah.
I went to Brighton.
Yes.
I think it was Brighton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Game of Two Halves.
Games of Two Halves. Yeah. So it was a great year, and I got to see my first festival.
Yay! Which was, of course,
High Voltage. So I went to went to see my first festival, High Voltage, which was just amazing. We just so many different bands that we saw over the 2 days. So my very first festival in London, in Victoria Park, and it was just fabulous. So 2010 as a year for touring and seeing a lot of the bands that I like, brilliant.
I remember that High Voltage Festival because I went with you, of course. I think it was just you and me.
It was.
It was a very hot day, I seem to recall. In fact, it was a hot day. And I can't believe that was your first festival, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
your
it was. Very first.
But it was good. It was a good day. There were some great acts, weren't there? And the two things that remind me of that day were you get a little bit of sunstroke quite early on, which was a shame. And also, we met a lot of our what we call our festival family.
Exactly,
then,
we did.
And that was great. That was one of that was probably for me the best part about the whole thing. Made some great friends, lasting friends from that festival. Yeah. So anyway, yes. Sorry, back to the year in question.
The year in question.
When you were 41.
Yeah. So I'm going to kick off. I've got a few. I had so many albums to choose from that I bought in 2010. You talked to a couple of shows ago about how many albums you bought in 2010. This was a bumper year for me. So I'm going to kick off with an album that I was so looking forward to. Our good friends at Planet Rock, who we listen to quite a lot, they really pushed this band quite a lot. It was the Black Country Communion, or as they wanted to be called, Black Country. But I think an American band already had the name and wouldn't sell it to Glenn and Joe. And they had to rename the band as Black Country Communion. So Black Country Communion's debut album came out in 2010. Obviously, for those of you who don't know who Black Country members are, it's Glenn Hughes, Joe Bonamassa, Derek Sherinian, who was in Dream Theater, also tours with Billy Idol, and Jason Bonham on drums. It was a absolutely cracking album. They played live at John Henry's. It was a Planet Rock special, and it was it delivered. One Last Soul was the lead-off single, Black Country Communion itself, and my own personal favourite on the album, which is Song of Yesterday, which features Joe Bonamassa singing on it. So 2010, Black Country Communion delivered. Have done so that was my first one, which really, rock was alive in 2010 with that album. Second album, a little bit more, this would qualify for a hidden gem for me, but I remember buying this album, and the album's called Circus Bar, and Circus Bar was the second solo album and the final studio album from the former Bad Company vocalist Brian Howe. So Brian Howe famously in the late 80s, early 90s, really worked with Simon Kirke and Bad Company with Mick Ralphs to keep the brand going. Much more American sound, but Brian Howe kept the band going through the States. Lots of good sales. But this was Brian's album. He did a couple of remakes of Bad Company hits. Two brilliant songs called How About That and Holy Water. So I bought that album. It's a really, really good album. Second album, Circus Bar by Brian Howe, from formerly of Bad Company. So great singer. The next album, and this is genuinely not a setup, Matt.
Okay.
This album was released on the 29th of March, 2010. Wow. This album.
That date rings a bell for some reason.
It does. It rings a bell. It's Metropolis by FM. So FM are a guilty pleasure of mine. I've loved FM since the 80s. They released the single Frozen Hearts. Steve Overland, to me, is probably one of the most underrated vocalists. We've seen him at Ramblin' Man. FM put on a great show. So they'd gotten back together for Firefest, which is the melodic rock festival. So they got back together in 2007, and they recruited Jim Fitzpatrick, who plays with Bernie Marsden, great guitar player. So they recorded an album in 2010 called Metropolis. It is an absolute belter. It tracks on it like Wild Side, Metropolis, the lead single, Over You. It's got 14 tracks. It's a 63-minute album. And just like the Thunder album, earlier, Matt, when you're talking about strong songwriting the whole way through, check out FM's Metropolis album. It is a strong album. So that's my next album.
It's a good choice.
What do you like on FM?
I like FM, actually. I was quite a late comer to FM, as I am with a lot of bands, actually. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not sure whether they should be a guilty pleasure, because they are, they're a bona fide, melodic rock AOR band. I know you love a bit of AOR.
I love my AOR.
But I mean, in recent years, they've been prolific, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've released album after album, and toured, and as you say, done festivals. Well worth checking out when they are, come around your way, as it were.
Very much. FM. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Great band. And I'm going to finish off because there's a few notables, and I'm interested in who you have, what albums you've picked. But my last band, and we've already mentioned two things to do with this next band. Number one, they actually opened High Voltage Festival in 2010, and Luke Morley from Thunder was the guitar player in the band. It is The Union. So The Union was formed in 2009. Their debut album, essentially, it was Luke Morley and a singer called Pete Shoulder. Now, Pete Shoulder was in a band called Winterville. Pete's from the northeast of England. Pete is just an absolutely phenomenal singer. The album itself is just really rootsy, acoustic-driven rock and roll. I was lucky enough to see the Union supporting both Thin Lizzy and Whitesnake on the tours. And, Chris Childs from Thunder was playing bass. It just was a great show, and they followed it up within a year with Siren's Song as a second album, equally as strong, Matt. And so I was a big fan of the Union. It's probably something that if Luke's ever got any downtime and he wants to work with Pete again, I'm sure they would pick it up. But those are just 4 albums from 2010, Matt, and there's so many more. I'm interested in terms of 2010 for you. What were you listening to then?
Well, I was listening several of those, actually. Certainly The Union, which is a great album, as you say. It's got some good stuff on there. Step Up to the Plate, and Easy Street, a couple of my favourite songs on that album. What was I listening to? So I probably went to those same tours as you, because I did pop up a lot as an opening act. I thought the Slash album was a good piece of work from 2010. That was essentially Slash's first piece of solo work, where he worked with various singers from Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas on the song Beautiful Dangerous. I think he started his working relationship with Miles Kennedy on that album. A couple of songs there. I think it's really good. I know you don't really like the album that much, but I don't really see what there is to dislike, to be honest with you. Lemmy's on it, Ozzy Osbourne's on it, Ian Astbury's on it, Andrew Stockdale from Wolfmother's on it.
That's a great track with Andrew Stockdale. Yeah.
By the Sword. I love it. It's a good album. And I also, in that year, remember The Final Frontier by Iron Maiden came out, which is a good album. Very much in that, as we said a couple of times before, in that sort of mold of more sort of progressive rock, progressive metal even. And my favourite song on that album is right at the end. It's called When the Wild Wind Blows. A very interesting song based on a Raymond Briggs book. But yeah, check that out. When the Wild, it's quite long. It's about 12 minutes long.
But that's right. It's epic.
It is epic. That is a good way of explaining it. And then finally, we talked about this band last time round. Alter Bridge released their third album in 2010. Not very imaginatively titled, but AB3 came out that year, which I mean, I love Alter Bridge, as I've said. I mean, they're one of my favorite, if not my favorite band of the 21st century. And AB3 came out that year, weighing in at over 65 minutes, which again is, pretty good. And there's some great songs on there. I mean, the standout songs for me are Slip to the Void, which is the opening song, and Isolation. And they just go from strength to strength to Alter Bridge. So, I would agree. It was a good year. It was a good year for lots of reasons.
All I can say about that album, with the success of Blackbird, to then be able to follow that up with that third album, that to me, that Blackbird's AB3 period, and they've done some great material after that. That to me is they were really, really tight as a unit, and Miles really found himself vocally. And you're going out and you've got Blackstone Cherry as your support band, and they played Wembley and stuff. So great album, great album.
Yeah,
good choices, my friend.
Well, there you go. That's what it's all about, isn't it? So, hopefully some food for thought for our listeners.
Exactly.
So,
good.
That was 2010.
So, Matthew, the year.
Yes, I'm listening.
You're listening now. We need a drum roll. We need a. The year that I'm offering you for my year in rock is 1994.
Okay, thank you. I shall take that. I will do that a year next time. Then, how old was I then? You were about to ask.
How old were you in 94?
I was coming up to 30.
All right, I'm pleased you said. I nearly said
I was 29.
I was going to say I was 35, but no, that wouldn't have worked out.
Well, I hope you weren't, because you're always going to be 4 years younger.
Exactly.
Anyway, enough about how old we are.
Yes.
And all that.
One of the things that we've talked about, and we've talked about a lot of our favourite bands, and we were talking about High Voltage Festival, Matt, and there's lots of UK festivals that you and I go to. And it got me thinking about, what happens in the rest of the world and what other bands are out there. And I was thinking about some amazing festivals that we haven't been to, like Grass Pop, Sweden Rock, Hellfest, Wacken. So there's loads of metalheads and hard rock fans across the whole of Europe and outside of the UK and outside of the US. And it got me thinking, who out of in all the other regions of the world, apart from the UK and the United States of America, who were the great bands, or who are the great bands from those areas? Just got me thinking, where are the great bands who are not from the UK or America?
Well, it's a good question. Where are they?
Well, they're in lockdown, so they're at home.
I wasn't actually, no. We know exactly where they are. That's good. Yeah, it's a good point. And I think when we last talked about Jet, in the context of their debut album, the brilliantly named Get Born, I had the same thought, actually, funny enough, which is quite convenient, isn't it, really? That we should be on the same wavelength for a change. I had to think about it. I did actually do some preparation for this a little bit, a couple of minutes before we started recording this. You're right, because, quite often Britain and the USA, and by Britain I include Ireland as well, as part of the British Isles, Great Britain and Ireland. I mean, global domination, I suppose, of music, rock music in the last, 40, 50 years has come largely from those countries, with your Led Zeppelins and your Sabbaths and Deep Purple and Aerosmith and so on. The list is, almost endless.
Yeah.
Whereas, of course, there have been some great acts that have come from all over the world, some far-flung places, of course. Australia, for one, hugely prolific in this space.
And Canada.
And other places too. Certainly Australia and Canada kind of stand out, don't they? So talk me through your thoughts.
So I'm going to kick off with some that when again, like you, a little bit of research into it. So one of the bands that I was considering, a Swedish band, which is called Ghost. And Ghost, I got to see Ghost supporting Alice in Chains. And Ghost, obviously, quite dark themed, medieval music, etc. But their fourth album, they've won a Grammy. So Ghost have won a Grammy. And I was listening to some tracks off their fourth album, which is called Prequel. And their single, which I'll put on the Spotify playlist, is called Dance Macabre. It is absolutely belting tune. They look all gothic and, all of the makeup and the pontiff hats and whatever.
That's right.
But it all looks very menacing. Musically wise, I was very impressed with Ghost. So the second band that I had on the list was a Danish band who, again, was Volbeat.
Oh, yeah.
Now, a band I came new to, Volbeat, there's a track that they do which is just killer. It's called The Sinner Is You. And again, it's very... there was a time in the 2000s where, you listen to like the Black Keys, and that... that sort of like really grungy. It had that Queen of the Stone Age type feel to it. So Volbeat from Denmark, another shout out band. And then there's some of the power metal. I saw Sabaton on a download highlight show on Sky Arts, and they do the whole get the tanks out, but musically really, really, really good. So I kick off with those three bands, Matt, which a little bit out of the norm for me, but bands that have been coming through, and I know a lot of people will like them.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, certainly Ghost and Volbeat. I mean, they've done some great stuff over the last couple of years. Last few years. The song Ghost, as in If You Have Ghosts, great tune. And another song called Rats.
Yes.
Stick those on. People will love those. And of course, Lola Montez, which has become a kind of a modern rock classic by Volbeat. So yeah, good stuff. I'm gonna turn the clock back a little bit when it comes to my selection. So back in 1981, I saw Iron Maiden. I think I told you my first ever gig was Iron Maiden at the University of East Anglia. And they were supported by a band called Trust. Now, Trust were from France.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going anymore. Fronted by a chap called Bernard Bonvoisin. He was French, obviously. And that day on the drums was a certain Nico McBrain, who later went on to join Iron Maiden. Yeah, they were kind of part of that. I mean, they weren't British, obviously, but they kind of got swept along with the new wave of British heavy metal thing.
Yeah.
New wave of Gallic metal, I suppose you could say. Trust. Check out an album called Repression. It hasn't stood the test of time particularly well. I mean, it's a good riffy album. It's very political, very 70s political. They were essentially a kind of political rock band. There's some interesting songs on there. I'll leave you to decide. But I mean, Paris is Still Burning kind of sums up the album in its entirety. Interestingly, Jimmy Percy from Sham 69 had worked on the translation from the French to the English. So it's interesting.
Okay.
So Trust. And then, of course, talking about all things Germanic, of course, we can't overlook Rammstein, a phenomenon of recent times, a huge spectacle live, some great songs. I guess you'd call them kind of industrial metal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, phenomenal stuff. I first got hooked into them probably in about 2002 with the song Son, which has that fantastic video where they're kind of doing a parody of the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs thing. Check that out on YouTube. There's an edited version There's an unedited version. I'll leave you to decide which one you want to look at, which one you want to watch. But yeah, Son by Bramstein. Some great stuff. So yeah, there you go. There's my couple of old and new selections from me. When you were talking about Sweden, I thought there's only one band from Sweden.
I'm building up to it, Matt. I'm not going. Okay. I'm not going to. You can't give away. This is we've had we're having the hors d'oeuvres and our appetizers. Let's
Are we?
Sabaton and then we move into some of the bigger Swedish bands. Sweden have got some amazing bands. We've talked about some of the frontier bands. We've mentioned Wet in the past. So Eclipse is one of the great bands. Eclipse, very, very AOR melodic, right up my street. But Opeth, again, Opeth played at High Voltage in 2010. Opeth started off as a really, really dark death metal band right at the get-go. And by the time they recorded their 7th album, they had gone prog. They were prog metal. And they have an album. I'll put the track. Certainly, I'll put a track from their 7th album, Damnation, which is just full on prog. There's a track on it called Window Pane, and listen to it. It's very Porcupine Tree, even Floydish. Very, very good stuff. So Opeth, again, another band to check out. Obviously got the connections with Steven Wilson, with Mikkel and Steven Wilson have worked together. And then, of course, I can't not talk about Sweden without... So I can't not. They're not even a guilty pleasure, because I don't hide the fact that I love Europe, and Europe just keep getting better and better. They will be in time a classic rock band, and people will go Final Countdown, yeah, but Europe from Sweden, awesome, and they're set at the Sweden Rock Festival a few years ago. I think it was their 25th or 30th anniversary concert. They brought Michael Schenker out to do Lights Out. They brought Scott
UFO fans, aren't they?
Yeah, and they brought Scott Gorham out to do Jailbreak. Europe, fabulous band. So there's another band, but I don't think we should just stay in Europe, Matt. Let's go over to the Americas then.
Shall we?
Yes.
Shall we? On our whistle stop tour around the world.
Exactly.
Well, of course, yeah. Canada, as you mentioned.
Okay.
I mean, we mentioned several of these bands already on previous podcasts. The Tragically Hip, of course, which I think was a hidden gem.
I had them written down. See, I've learnt. I had the Tragical Hip written down on my list.
There you go. Listeners, he has. We talked about them a little while ago. Great band, sadly no longer with us since the death of their singer Gord Downey a few years ago. Also from Canada, Nickelback.
Yes.
I mean, not everyone's cup of tea for some reason. I've never really understood why not.
I love them.
I mean, they've done some great stuff over the years, and people, they seem to be a bit sort of, you either love them or hate them. I mean, I don't love them, but I don't hate them. I mean, they've done some good stuff. And, of course, everyone remembers, Rockstar, but there's more to Nickelback than that, of course. So, of course, from Canada. And
I've got a fantastic three-piece.
That's it. I can't think of anyone else from Canada apart from...
No, there is a fantastic three-piece from Canada.
Yeah, I know. I was just about to talk about them.
One
of the greatest bands ever to tread God's earth, of course.
Triumph. So we're
they're Norwegian.
No, Triumph are Canadian.
Yes, I know they are. Yeah.
So Triumph. I saw Triumph in the Oss Festival. So Triumph were at the Oss Festival in 1983. three-piece band, Rick Emmett, who's got this absolutely soaring high voice. And he played with like a big jazz, like a jazzy guitar, three-piece band. And they were playing tracks like Fight the Good Fight, Lay It on the Line. I was like, oh, wow, I loved Triumph. Great band. So I'm assuming that's the three-piece from Canada that you were talking about, Matt.
No.
Okay.
No, I think you know it. It's not that I have anything against Triumph, of course, but arguably Canada's greatest export, of course, musically.
Alanis Morissette.
I think isn't she Norwegian? Yeah. No. Well, of course, that's a great shout. But she's not a three-piece. She's a one person. She's a one piece. She's still a single person. Rush, of course. We talked about Rush a lot over the weeks. Fantastic band. Sadly, no more. But again, a fantastic export from Canada.
Yeah.
Several others that we should mention, of course, the likes of Neil Young, fantastic performer, of course, and Bryan Adams, the groover from Vancouver.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Canada, very prolific, as you say, Alanis Morissette to Rush, Triumph. Anything to add on our whistle stop tour of Canada? North America,
not at all.
Brian?
I was waiting to see if you were going to mention Bryan Adams, and I'm so pleased. When you talk about the groover from Vancouver, I actually went to Tower Records when I was in Vancouver, and I bought.
Did you?
I went into Tower Records. I can remember NSYNC were the number one band in North America at the time, and I walked into Tower Records in Vancouver, and they were blasting out that song, bye 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 bye, and I went straight to the rock section, and I picked up Bryan Adams' live album, Live, which was a one that he'd released at the time, and I bought a BA album in Vancouver because I wanted to have a Bryan Adams album that I bought in Canada.
That's great. I've seen Bryan Adams, and I know you have too. And
I love him.
Again, another one. If he comes round again, which hopefully he will, you should go and see him. He does this great bit where he pulls a lady from the audience up on stage. Don't put her on, obviously invites her on to sing "When You're Gone." I think it's called the song, which he duetted with Mel C on the original version, which is great as a real fun part of the night. So yeah, Bryan Adams, fantastic stuff. I mean, it doesn't get much better than the groover from Vancouver.
Exactly.
Of course. Should we go down under? It is your birthday after all. So
is that
weird? We'll end our global whistle stop tour in down under. Let's just say
exactly
in that part of the world. Do they still call it Australasia?
Australasia as a continent. That means we could include New Zealand.
Indeed, yeah.
There you go.
We could indeed. Australia, very prolific again. Some great acts. Again, turning the clock back, another band that was pretty prominent in the early 80s is a band called Rose Tattoo, of course. For those who have never seen Rose Tattoo, as the name suggests, heavily tattooed band from Australia, and did some great stuff in the early 80s, and was fronted by Angry Anderson, great name, who also did, I think, the wedding theme in Neighbours.
He did,
which was quite a career move for him. Probably made a few bob out of it.
He probably did.
So yeah, Rose Tattoo. Again, good time rock and roll. Check them out. Man, we've seen a few times, of course. In a similar vein, actually. Don't mind kind of, getting a bit carried away on stage. Is Airborne, of course.
Awesome.
Airborne.
Awesome,
Yeah.
band. Awesome band.
A relatively modern, recent band from Oz, of course.
And exactly. And another person, again, a band in Australia, obviously Cold Chisel, but Cold Chisel were fronted by Jimmy Barnes. The man is just a beast of a singer. He just wheels. He doesn't need a mic. We could hear him.
That's true.
We could hear him off the stage at Rambling Man. The man is just a beast of a singer. Love him.
That's right. That's right. No, I agree. And we did see him. And you said one of the funniest things you ever said to me that day. We're watching Jimmy Barnes. It was probably about 4:00 in the afternoon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Something like that. And he was nailing it. And his voice is, his voice is like sandpaper. And he looks angry all the time, didn't he? And a face like
stomping
thunder.
around on stage.
Stomping around. He didn't look like he wanted to be there, but I think he enjoyed himself. And you turned to me and said, Matt, I feel sorry for the mic. And I absolutely rolled around. That was hilarious. Jimmy Barnes and Cold Chisel, great stuff.
Great
and of course, there's a link to another band I was going to mention, of course, and one or two people already on our Facebook page have mentioned In Excess.
Oh.
We did that fantastic duet with Jimmy Barnes. I think it's called Good Time Tonight.
It was on the. I always remember it was. It was on the soundtrack for The Lost Boys.
So that's all I got to offer. Oh, and we haven't mentioned another. Well, I mean, I'll let you talk about the biggest band ever to come up with Australia. I guess. Blimey, I forgot all about them.
Did you? Well, how could we leave out Midnight Oil?
I know.
Or Men at Work. And Kylie.
Both of them, all of them are worthy of mention, of course, for different reasons. When they mentioned Men at Work, I can't not mention Who Can It Be Now? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Great song. Anyway, we could go on forever.
We could
go on, but it just proves the point that there is more to rock and roll than the UK and the US of A.
Uh-huh. So let's not forget the greatest export from Australia then, which is AC/DC. Although Scotland do take a claim to the Young Brothers.
Indeed. And of course, Mr. Ronald Belford Scott was born in Kirriemuir in Scotland. Now, I would agree. But of course, to all intents and purposes, they were brought up in and found their chops in Australia. So we'll let the Scots and the Australians, fight it out for AC/DC.
Exactly.
We'll just sit in the middle enjoying their music, shall we?
We shall indeed. There
you go.
And it's
so that was good. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, blimey, what are you going to choose for AC/DC? I don't know. I'll let you decide.
I'll choose one from Bon and one from Brian. It's always the best way to
do it. Sounds like a good plan and a nice way to end that chat on. Right. So we come to the part of the podcast which everyone enjoys because Brian is always gobsmacked, of course, and one where we were developing a theme tune for it. Do you remember last time, Brian? Shall I remind you how it went?
Please do. In fact, you don't really have to because it's ingrained in my head. It's a Worm song. But for the listeners, please.
Is it that catchy?
Is that catchy?
My jingle.
Yeah.
Hidden Gem Time. I'm not sure I like it now, to be honest with you. I might have to retire that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hidden Gem Time.
Exactly.
Which I do. I look forward to this part of the podcast. I think a lot of people do actually. In fact, I know they do because people tell me. And in time-honored fashion, since we've started this, I shall let you go first.
That's very kind of you for letting me.
It's your birthday, of course.
It's my birthday. So, my hidden gem, and I'm going to be sneaky, Matthew. My hidden gem is going to be by a band, but I'm going to mention two albums, if that's okay.
It's your birthday. Go for it.
It's my birthday.
It's fine.
What's that song? There's a song in my head now. Is it a Beatles track where it's go, say it's your birthday? Anyway,
it is a Beatles song.
It's a Beatles song, so it's just gone in my head now.
Yeah.
So
I thought you were going to ask me about Dave Stewart and Barbara Gaskin, of course, which was "It's My Birthday and I'll Cry If I Want to," but of course it won't come to that.
No.
Do you remember that?
I do.
Let's not go there.
Let's not go. Yeah. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. So
right, anyway, hidden gem time. What's
hidden
your
gem
hidden
time?
gem, Brian?
I'd like to think I was going to pick a band that was going to be outside of the US or outside of the UK, just to keep it in the theme of the show. But no, I'm going to pick an album. I'm going to pick a band, and they've just re-released this. This is the 20th anniversary of an album that was released on March the 27th, 2001. And it was produced by Brendan O'Brien, who obviously produced Pearl Jam and Dogman by King's X.
Had to slip there in, didn't you?
So I'm going to go with the second.
So who was the second one? Dogman by King's X.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I could have gone. All of those multi-platinum albums that he's and obviously he did the last 3 AC/DC albums. Let's bring it up to. It's not all about King's X in this show.
No. Well, it often seems like it is.
So Brendan O'Brien produced the second studio album of Train. And Train, so Train were one of the bands. I held Train back from my list of who I saw in 2010. So I actually got to see Train in 2010 for the first time, and they were immense. Brilliant band. But their second studio album was called Drops of Jupiter. Drops of Jupiter, a lot of people will know the song if you've been watching MTV, but the album's got country, rock, indie rock, acoustic, She's on Fire. It sold absolute bucket loads in America and in Canada as well too, but I couldn't, when I was just thinking and going through my list of who I saw in 2010, I saw Train. So Drops of Jupiter is an album. Train, a great, that would be my first album that I would recommend. The second album of Train, if you want a little bit of a really hidden gem, is Train.
We do. It's what it's all about. It's part of the show.
Train. If you ever hear Pat Monahan as a singer, and you hear if you do listen to the album, he's got a very, very poppy rock voice. So it was really interesting in 2016 when Train released a full cover album called Train Does Led Zeppelin 2. And they do a complete song-by-song replication of Led Zeppelin's 1969 Led Zeppelin 2. And honestly, for a band that's quite, poppy, they went out and recorded Led Zeppelin 2. And honestly, I'll put a couple of tracks of it on the Spotify list, but they got back to rocking. And Pat Monahan is a vocalist. We've talked about vocalists, and we've talked about Miles, and we talk about but people listen to that album of Train covering Led Zepp 2, the whole album, and you will be very impressed with Pat Monahan's vocals and the rest of the band. So I offer you as my hidden gem with 2 albums this episode, Matt, Train.
Very good. Well, I know Drops of Jupiter, of course. I didn't know they did a Led Zepp 2 homage.
Yeah.
So I'll probably check that out. That is a good album, that Drops of Jupiter, though. I went to America in 2005 for a weekend with a couple of friends of mine, Richard and Kelvin, listeners to the podcast, and that song seemed to be on everywhere.
Yeah.
But it is a kind of a classic piece of Americana, isn't it?
What have you got for me then?
Right.
What have you got for me?
Well, I just thought this up actually.
Oh, here we go, people. This is where Matt goes. Oh yeah, he's mentioned Train. He's put a little gem of a Led Zeppelin cover album. Oh, what can I pull out of my box of hidden gems tricks? Come on, then.
Well, that was quite a build-up. Let's hope it's good. So this is an album from 2012, actually. And when you mentioned earlier that we were seeing various gigs back in 2010 or so with the Union supporting, this band was also doing the rounds as an opening act back then. And my hidden gem for this week is an album by this band. I think it was their only album. Are you getting warmer, Brian?
Anyway, the cogs are whirring around.
I'll cut to the chase. My hidden gem this time is an album by a band called Red, White and Blues. The album is called Shine. Well, it's a great album. And they kind of came and went, really.
Is there a connection with Skin at all?
Yeah, Mike Gray. Mike Gray was the guitarist in Skin.
Yeah.
Was the guitarist in Red, White and Blues.
Yeah.
And so dig around for it. It's out there, Red, White and Blues, the album Shine. It's got some good stuff on it. Standout songs such as Rescue Me, Stand Up for Rock and Roll is an absolute kind of crowd pleaser, really. Classic opening song. And a slow ballad called Counts for Nothing. But yeah, it's a good album. So my hidden gem for this week, Brian, is Shine by the Red, White and Blues.
Excellent. That's a really good show. And they were one of those bands. It was EPs, and there was a lot of noise and good vibes about them, and it all went really quiet for them. And then obviously Skin got back together and did High Voltage and a few things, and we shall, for those of us who are going to go to the Steelhouse Festival this year, if it's on, Neville will be fronting Bernie Marsden's band.
Yep.
And Neville McDonald's just an amazing singer from Skin, and to be fair, I think the lead singer, I'm doing this off the top of my head, was the lead singer in Red, White and Blue called Dario or Darius. Dario.
Could have been.
Yeah. He was a great singer. Great singer.
I thought of this off the top of my head when we talked about support acts earlier. Yeah. I did have another one planned, but I'll save that for next time. So that was it. That was the birthday special.
Thank you.
Once again, happy birthday, Brian. I hope you've had a good day. And thank you to everyone for listening. As always, we do appreciate it. Get in touch. We are on Facebook and on Twitter at FTAT Pod. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for dialing in. We will see you all soon. Rock on. For those about to pod, we salute you is a Mealy Rogers media production. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.